with England. There was commerce, and they just felt that was their homeland, so that they were English subjects. If caught, they would be arrested and imprisoned. So it's not really surprising that the Irish would join the fight against the British. Laws were oppressive and anti-Irish. They were favoring the Anglo-Irish Protestants, and it was the Anglo-Irish coming to Ulster during the 17th century. They became the elite. About 10% of the population was Anglo-Irish, and the remaining was 90% Catholic Irish. So one of the ironies in all this is that when England started to relax their anti-Catholic laws, many Irish joined the British Army. I thought that was interesting. But due to unequal social, economic, and cultural realities on both sides of the pond, and these were the motivators, as well as that revolutionary tradition of rising up against the abuse of centralized authority, that was pretty deeply embedded in the hearts and minds of the Irish immigrant. And it is these Irish immigrants during this mass migration to America during the 60s and the 70s that would later energize this rebellion. It would add fuel to the American Revolution. A significant number of the Irish immigrants were later to be known as Ulster Scots or Scot-Irish, and these are from the northern counties. Now, this term was not really used until after the Revolutionary War, and this was to distinguish between basically Irish Protestants and Irish Catholics. Many of the Irish Catholics that immigrated to the colonies were indentured servants, and it was after their servitude was paid that they would later join Washington's Continental Army. Many still speaking the native Irish Gaelic tongue, or speaking in such thick brogues that they were a little bit hard to understand by their non-Irish compatriots. During the winter at Valley Forge, the Irish soldiers in the Continental Army far outnumbered the British and German soldiers. And this is including Washington's officers. He had about 20 generals that were either Irish or of Irish descent. The army became known as the Line of Ireland. A few of Washington's officers, General Richard Montgomery, he was a son of Irish immigrants and attended Trinity University in Dublin. He, along with General John Sullivan, who was also a son of Irish immigrants, they led the attack in Trenton, New Jersey on December 26, 1776, in which it was a major victory for Washington. I'm sure you all have seen the portrait of crossing the Delaware and leading the troops to Trenton, where they caught the soldiers sleeping and drunk because they'd been celebrating Christmas. And it was a major victory for the Patriots. We also have General John Haslett. He was from County Derry. He was killed leading the attack on Princeton, New Jersey, on January 3rd, 1777. General Daniel Morgan, son of Ulster Scot immigrants, he was a hero of the Saratoga attack in October of 1777. And then perhaps one of the most well-known generals was General Henry Knox, son of immigrants from County Derry, and Washington's right-hand man, and the leader of the artillery arm of the Continental Army. But one of the main battles that helped turn the Revolutionary War was the Battle of Kings Mountain, which occurred October 7th, 1780. So basically celebrated the anniversary of that. The interesting about that particular battle is that it was an patriot on one side and you had a loyalist on the other side. And both were Americans. One just fighting for the break from England, and the other wanted to retain the ties with England. This battle was very pivotal in the Southern Campaign, and it was a surprising victory for the American Patriot militia. There was been a whole string of Patriot defeats before that. So, and the the British general that was defeated in this campaign was Lord Cornwallis. And because of this defeat, it greatly raised the Patriots' morale. They soldiered on. The next battle that also led to high morale was the Battle of Cowpens. Now, Cornwallis, Paris was signed, and this established the former British colonies in America as an independent nation, the United States of America. In 1787, the Constitution replaces the Article of Confederation, and for me, that's really when we became a country. Articles of Confederation were just a hodgepodge, and they didn't make a lot of sense, and it was very hard to establish and to enforce them. But the Constitution, which is what we use today, to me, that's what really set us up apart from other countries. But the final victory, the final proof that we were an independent nation was when we defeated the English during the 1812 war. So that war lasted from 1812 to 1815, and it firmly sealed our independence and firmly established us as a nation. Now, the recognition of the Irish. This is from Philip Thomas Tucker, who wrote this article for the Irish Central. And one of the things that he wrote is that in a revealing July 18, 1775 letter, Lieutenant William Fielding wrote how above half of the American army consisted of Irish and Scotch soldiers. As if knowing that America would eventually win its independence because of the overwhelming Irish participation in the struggle, one British official lamented how the Irish Gaelic language was commonly spoken in the American ranks as English. George Washington Parker Custis, who is Washington's adopted son and a student of history, placed the significant Irish contribution to the American Revolution in a proper historical perspective. When our friendless standard was first unfurled for resistance, who were strangers that first mustered round its staff when it reeled in the fight, who more bravely sustained it than Erin's generous sons, who led the assault on Quebec and shed early luster on our arms in the dawn of our revolution, who led the right wing of liberty's forlorn hope at the passage of the Delaware just before the attack on Trenton, who felt the privations of the camp, the fate of battle, or the horrors of the prison ship more keenly than the Irish. Washington loved them, for they were the companions of his toil, his perils, his glories, and the deliverance of his country. Philip Tucker also states that a high-ranking French volunteer, the Marquis de Castellet, said it best: Congress owed its existence in America, possibly her preservation, to the firmness and the fidelity of the Irish. No one was more thankful than Washington for how the Irish literally saved the Revolution by their commitment, faith, and sacrifice year after year. Consequently, the father of the United States of America never forgot how Ireland, thou friend of my country, in my country's most friendless days. Richard Bell, who is a lecturer for the Smithsonian, he writes, giving testimony to the British House of Commons in 1779, American politician turned loyalist Joseph Galloway estimated that Irishmen composed perhaps one half of the Continental Army. 5 years later, after Washington's army won the war, another expert witness told Parliament that the Irish language was as commonly spoken in the American ranks as English, and that Irish valor determined the contest. So, the aftermath. One of the things that I was taught in our history class was that the Battle of Lexington and Concord in 1775 was the shot that was heard around the world. And that is to say that led to other wars of independence. the War of Independence for America, this was totally unique. This is something that really had not been done before or successfully. So you had this small group of people yearning for freedom, and they were able to win their freedom from a major world power. This common thread was the resistance of a central authority, especially when it resulted in policies that were unequal, socially, economically, and culturally. What followed were a series of other wars for independence. Now, when I was in school, the two that we were taught about was the French Revolution, which was from 1789 to 1799, and then in South America by Simon Bolivar, which included Venezuela, Bolivia, Colombia, Ecuador, Peru, and Panama. And those wars of independence lasted from 1808 to 1825. But in Ireland, Matthew Zinnick, who wrote for the Journal of the American Revolution, he writes, America won her independence in 1783 and the southern counties of Ireland in 1949. When the Irish MP described the difference between Ireland and America in the following terms: we are in watercolor what they are in fresco. Patrick Ford, the editor of the popular New York-based newspaper, The Irish World, wrote on the centenarian of the Revolution that the cause of America in 1776 is the cause of Ireland in 1876. The Friends of Irish Freedom, formed in New York in 1916, claimed 275,000 members at its peak. New York-born Eamon de Valera, a major figure during the Irish War of Independence and the founder of the Fianna Fáil, made much of America's history of colonial resistance as he toured the country in 1919. And as late as the 1980s, there was an important core of Irish Americans who supported IRA activities in Northern Ireland. Irish Americans and the Clinton administration played a crucial role in the 1990s in encouraging both loyalists and Republicans to sit down to the talks that have transformed Northern Ireland in the past 2 decades. The Irish resistance to British Empire was not transplanted to America, but American resistance to Britain was transplanted to Ireland. If we are to really appreciate the importance of the American Revolution and our Irish contribution, we must remember the effects it had across Europe and the wider world. So, happy belated 4th of July. You guys have a great day. Thank you. Bye-bye.